Some of my favorite moments in life is when a friend hits me and says, "Yo, I think I want to buy a watch." Helping a friend with that first watch acquisition is always a bit tricky for multiple reasons. Usually, there's a whole list of new vocabulary that needs to be learned, and trying to convince anyone to spend a minimum of $500 on anything can be tough. Most of the time, impossible. Look, this hobby is expensive. Regardless of what level you're at, it doesn't matter. Money is always going to be money, and 9 times out of 10, a watch purchase is often an irrational, impulsive thing that just happens on a cruise while you're sailing out of Port Canaveral in Orlando. The black dial watch. It's not better than or worse than any of the other color dial watches, it's just a black dial watch. But two of the most well-known, most iconic, and most attractive and most wanted watches in the world have black dials, and that has to mean something. I think a black dial watch is honestly the best dial watch. It's bold, there's contrast, it matches with everything, and when done well, it's timeless. To me, GADA specifications are anything 42 millimeters and below, 100 meters of water resistance minimum, a timeless design, and a watch I would wear to the beach and wear with a suit. My frame of mind for this list is embodying someone that wants to buy their first watch but only wants a watch with a black dial. I tried to challenge myself and suggest watches I don't personally own just to mix it up. I've personally handled 9 out of the 10 on this list, and I do technically own one, but not in black. This is the smaller version of the iconic DW5600. This model reference is marketed towards women, but for us small wrist people, these dimensions might work better. The black on black design is stealthy and the white lit digital text pops against the all black digital display. I think this watch looks amazing, and it is something I would wear with a suit. This watch features 200 meters of water resistance, a whole set of functions including a stopwatch and an alarm clock. This watch is virtually indestructible and has the potential to last you the rest of your life given you change the battery every few years. I don't think Citizen makes this watch available in the States, but Joma Shop has it right now for around $200. I haven't handled this watch, and the dial might be between black and dark gray, but the spec sheet looks nice, especially for the price. This is an ISO certified diver with 200 meters of water resistance, screw down crown and case back, automatic in-house 8 series movement with a 45-hour power reserve, mineral crystal, and really nice vintage inspired aesthetics. Looks like the black dial only comes with the rubber strap, but that's honestly okay. Because at this price point, bracelets are usually pretty underwhelming, and I think this watch would look great on a leather or nylon strap anyways. A 50mm lug-to-lug and almost 14mm thickness makes this watch a bit chunky, but with dive watches you can get away with larger cases because of what I like to call perceivable dimension. Because of the timing bezel, the dial sits smaller on the case, giving this optical illusion effect that it's a smaller watch than its proposed case dimensions. We call this dial to bezel ratio. Another honorable mention is the Citizen ProMaster Dive and some dive watches from Orient. I would say check out the Kamasu, the Kano, and the Mako. The under $500 Seiko is one of the hottest topics to talk about and is probably the starting point for most collections. Heritage plays a huge role in why Seiko is great, and whether you're a watch fan or not, looking at any of Seiko's vintage pieces from the 60s and 70s will make you wish they still made them like that. Well, for one reference, they did. For my number 3 pick, I choose the Seiko 5 SRP L05. This watch is an almost one-to-one recreation of the original 1960s reference. I think Seiko did an amazing thing with this watch, modernizing one of their timeless designs, and with a 38.5mm case diameter, I think this is one of the top standouts in the Seiko 5 line. Dimensions are solid, the bandolier style bracelet is nice, and the box this watch comes in is packaged really well compared to other Seiko 5s in the lineup. Seiko includes a leather strap with this purchase, which sweetens the pot a bit, adding to its versatility. Some honorable mentions from Seiko 5 is the SSK001, the SRPD55, and the SRPE55. Moving on to number 4, we go from 60s inspired to 70s inspired. This is the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80 and 35mm. I'm not throwing shade, but I say buy the automatic version of this watch over the Quartz. For me personally, I think the dial on the Quartz versions is just too plain. Despite all the insane popularity, the naysayers, the new challengers from Citizen and Christopher Ward, I still think this watch does the job and still has potential to be that first love for your collection. The 35mm wears like a 36, and one thing this watch does have over its competitors is an 80-hour power reserve. The 38mm Hamilton Khaki Field Murph on the bracelet is one of the best field watches ever created. It's like a field watch wearing a tuxedo. This is arguably the most important prop in recent film history, playing an iconic role in Christopher Nolan's film Interstellar. Now, coming equipped with the bracelet adds to its versatility and styling options. This watch is easily something you can dress up and dress down. The spec sheet is stacked, one of the key features being an 80-hour power reserve, and has an amazing origin story. If you or someone you love is a film buff, this might be one of the most meaningful releases in the watch world and one of the best value propositions under $1,000. Some honorable mentions in this category is any of the other Hamilton Khaki Fields, and a left field pick is the Mito Multifort TV Big Date. I own this watch, I love this watch, I'll always suggest this watch as a top candidate for a one-watch collection. This is Seiko at their best, and everything about this watch makes it the perfect go anywhere, do anything. It's not a perfect watch by any means, and that's okay. The spec sheet and the design can speak to you in whichever way your bias sways you to think, but once you have one of these in your hand, some of those doubts you have will lean off the fence a bit. This watch honestly has everything. Great legibility, immaculate Grand Seiko level finishing on the case, GMT functionality, a ceramic bezel, sapphire crystal, 72-hour power reserve, easy to grip screw down crown at the fore, and amazing lume. This is my favorite watch in my collection right now, and I feel like it could be yours too. And at an MSRP of $1,500, I say it's worth the money, even with the bracelet. This watch is inspired by one of the original Seiko dive watches from the 1960s, so for all of us vintage-inspired lovers, this modernized recreation has timeless aesthetic with modern technological features. Two honorable mentions in the higher tier Seiko category is the SPB 143 and the new Urushi Presage GMT, the SPB 447. I handled the non-GMT SPB 405 last year in Tokyo, and I'm sure this newer GMT model is just as great. I got to handle this exact watch at the AD, and it's really good. Longines is a name you get familiar with if you want to have some skin in the watch game. $2,000 isn't cheap, but with Longines' storied heritage, exceptional levels of finishing, and with these newly updated Conquest models from 2023, the brand is bringing some more universally desirable design language back into their entry-level lineup. I wasn't all the way a fan of their older Conquest models, but these updated Conquests are really nice. To anyone that likes the classic three-hand with a date type of aesthetic, the way Longines designed these dials might make those wanting a Rolex Datejust or Omega Aqua Terra take a second look. The 38 is a great universal size and will do well on most wrists. The 72-hour power reserve and the bracelet are the two things I want to point out. The bracelet is nice, and the first on this list where you'll feel the difference in quality compared to the rest. I have no need to own this watch personally, but I can see how this watch would make many people happy as a first luxury purchase. There are two watches on this list that I would suggest as the go ahead and get watches. The first was the Seiko SPB 383, and the second one is this, the Tudor Black Bay 41mm monochrome. I've handled this at the AD, and I'm a proud owner of a Black Bay myself. While I still prefer the steel and gold reference I own, this watch is undeniably sexy. The biggest update offered on the 41mm Black Bay is the METAS certified movement. The MT5602-U has been rigorously tested in the areas of precision, resistance to magnetic fields, waterproofness, and power reserve. For those that don't know, Tudor and Rolex are under the same umbrella, and at one point in time, Tudor made their version of the Submariner, which the Black Bay lineup is inspired by. This watch has heritage, amazing build quality, high levels of finishing, excellent wrist presence, and a timeless design. I'd personally opt for the 5-link bracelet if you decide to pull the trigger on what I think is the best release of 2024 as far as mainstream brands go. The Seamaster Aqua Terra is one of the most thoughtful, well-made watches on planet Earth. This glossy black dial is a new release for 2024, and I think one of the best looking black dial watches in the market right now. Omega is most famous for sending a watch up to the moon, but beyond the Speedmaster, there are some other heavy hitters that solidify them being one of the most popular, most well-respected names in watchmaking. This particular Aqua Terra reference comes with 150 meters of water resistance, a dome sapphire crystal, the METAS certified caliber 8800 movement with a 55-hour power reserve, and a screw-down crown with exhibition caseback. Oftentimes, in my experience talking with friends and other enthusiasts, this watch gets grouped together with the Rolex Datejust and Oyster Perpetual as the alternative option for a first-time luxury watch purchase. If you were working with a $7K budget, which would you choose? Would you go Omega or would you go Rolex? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Two of the most iconic watches ever made happen to be black dial watches, which was the inspiration behind this video. The Omega Speedmaster and the all-black Rolex Submariner, the Speedy and the Sub, still to this day, are two of the most desired watches on the planet, and watches that are always well respected when spotted in a collection. Rolex and Omega undeniably always get the first looks when the topic of luxury Swiss watchmaking gets brought into the conversation, but if I were to walk into the Rolex boutique with $7K, I'd get an Explorer. The 124270, released in 2021, brings back the original 36mm case size, which had been absent from the Rolex lineup for about 11-ish years before its 2021 release. Contrary to popular opinion, this is my favorite Rolex and has been for some time now, and the return of the 36mm case option makes it even more enticing for me. I usually don't go for smaller size watches, but in the case of the Explorer, I'll make the exception. Caliber 3230 on the inside, this watch has a 70-hour power reserve, screw-down crown and caseback for 100 meters of water resistance, a sapphire crystal, and the iconic 369 on the dial, which is loomed. Okay, a few things I want to say before we wrap things up. For all my potential first-time watch buyers watching this, lots of the watches I've mentioned come in different dial color variations in case black dials aren't your thing. I'm here if you have any questions. Drop a line in the comments and I'll do my best to get back to you. I hope this video helped you decipher some of the watch browsing madness and gave you some insight. Please check out some of the other videos on my channel for some of the other watches I've reviewed if you want more. As always, I appreciate the viewership so much. To all my channel regulars, I apologize if this list feels a little basic. If you want me to put together a gift guide that expands deeper into our worlds, leave a comment below. I loved putting this video together, and based on how it performs, I might come back with other variations of the same format. Please don't forget to like and sub. It would mean so much to me if you did it, and I will see you on the next video.